I'm back. Welcome back to the James and Dame Show. I'm Josiah, and I'm alive.
And I'm Will, and I'm also alive.
Because some people were concerned about me being gone. I had other civic duties to attend to during this whole time, so it's called going to a bowl game and winning. I didn't play, unfortunately, but
Hence the...
I played an instrument. Does that count?
Yeah, he played something.
I played something.
He did play something.
All right, but this is week 17 recap. It's crazy that we only have one more week of this. It's chaotic, but one more week, and then we're moving on. So we're gonna kind of go into this and kind of talk about a lot of things from what I've seen from the notes we've kind of compiled together. So I'll let you start off with what you want to talk about, because I didn't get to see everything.
Yeah, I mean, there were a bunch of games that didn't matter and weren't interesting, so we'll kind of mitigate the game talk as much and talk more about the end of the regular season and kind of the things that are coming of that, because playoffs are right around the corner, and there's some things to talk about here. So we'll start with some games though, and I handpicked some games that I thought were the most interesting, to me at least. And so I don't know. I feel like we just get it out of the way. Some people saw it, some people didn't. Definitely know that I saw it because it's on record. We got the Commanders and the Falcons game.
Nice.
lot at stake at this game.
Indeed.
We had two teams trying to work for a playoff spot. Obviously, the Commanders, with their win, clinched the playoff spot, but the Falcons, with that loss, have lost the control of the NFC South. And that is crucial, because now they need not only a win next week, but a Buccaneers loss in order to get into the playoffs. Meanwhile, Commanders with a win, they're in now. So props to you. But
and what was it? It took 20. What was it? Under Dan Snyder, they did not have a season with over 10 wins, but the first season, not with Dan Snyder, they have 11 wins.
It also helps that you had Cliff Kingsbury, Jane Daniels, that defense,
yeah.
Dan Quinn.
Good defense, good weapons and everything. So it was meant to be, as some would say.
Yeah, very, very happy for them. So they finally made it, but Buccaneers, they're right there. They can now control their own destiny, while the Falcons are one step closer to elimination. But you are still in the race technically. You're actually the last team just outside that has a chance. Yeah, this game, I don't know how much you saw. Again, obviously I saw it because I live streamed it, but it was a good game. It was a very good game. There was Commanders kind of struggled in the first half. It started off hot on the first drive with a turnover and then a touchdown, but then not scoring for the rest of the first half. Falcons pulling away, and it looked like it might have been a little bad, and then Commanders come in, dominate time of possession, let up a last-minute drive, though, to Michael Penix, and it's like, what is going on in this game? It was
mayhem from what I've heard.
It was mayhem, but good mayhem, a good game.
Good mayhem.
Good mayhem. Game. Good game. Was very happy.
Good job.
Good game. Good Sunday night game. All it took was
good
Josiah
game.
Not being there.
Good game.
Crazy.
That's how it is.
Crazy.
Anyways.
Hey, don't look at me. It's the NFL. It's the NFL.
It's the NFL.
But yeah, a good game. Especially from Jaden Daniels and Bijan Robinson, I think were kind of my two highlights of that game. Bijan has been having a pretty good year, but regardless of that fact and the good performance he had, he still wasn't even the lead rusher in that game because that was Jaden
No.
Daniels, who also just had a good game in the passing game. It was good offense, good defense. It wasn't necessarily consistent, and there were still some concerns, I think, with the Commanders. But again, they're a much improved team, an exciting team, and they're now in the playoffs. So congratulations. But
That is
move
true.
along to
Yes, we can move along.
another game.
There's a couple of games that I want to quickly skim through. Quickly, briefly go over it. Chiefs and Steelers. Oh no, who knew? Steelers are kind of going through their end of the season collapse right now. They are over 500, so they don't care anymore. Now they'll get a bounced first round now. Ravens, dominant win overall.
Can't be stopped on
Lamar,
Christmas. Let's
That
go.
True. That too. Lamar making his case for the MVP. Derrick Henry doing Derrick Henry things.
You know it.
Locked up the 2 seed, or not the 2 seed. You locked up a very high seeding if you can beat the Steelers, or if the Steelers lose out. So
Yeah, we did put ourselves in position to now. We are now in control of the division, and a simple win would grant us division lead. So Steelers squander their opportunity, but I am quite happy to be atop of that division yet again. So happy with that one.
for sure.
Let's
And then there
see.
are some games we will not be talking about because they were super boring, and I saw the scores of them. I'm like, no, there's no reason to talk about them.
What, like
Except
9
for the fact-
total points?
Yeah, except for the fact that sell the team chants are finally erupting in that stadium.
Well, you might have
Took 'em a
one.
long time.
You might have one thing from that Thursday night game you would like to maybe mention.
Yeah, that too. I was gonna mention that now that you reminded me, but Seattle, I had high hopes for you, especially with that turnaround, especially midseason. However, you are struggling on so many aspects of the ball that it's not funny anymore. I think you might as well just start over. Geno Smith is starting to regress a little bit. Maybe it's time to hang up the cleats, go home, rebuild, stuff like that. So it's also McDonald's first season as a head coach, so I'm giving him some slack. But still, you're eliminated. Too bad.
Yeah, I think the funniest, or one of the most interesting things watching this on Sunday, was the fact that they were not eliminated. The circumstances in which they were eliminated was interesting because they didn't.
Yes.
They weren't eliminated by losing because they won. They weren't eliminated by the Rams winning. They were eliminated
Yeah.
because it was like 3 or 4 of the Rams opponents won, and so they were guaranteed a higher strength of schedule, so that even if the Seahawks win, they still will not have a good enough strength of schedule to beat that tiebreaker. And I just think that's the funniest thing is it's not even the fact that the Rams won or the Seahawks
It's just
won.
it's tiebreakers and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's the teams that give
well.
them a high enough strength of schedule, and I just think that's funny. But poor Seattle
Yeah.
gave it a shot. We're not even going to talk about the Bears. Not.
No, we're not.
We'll
gonna talk about
we'll come
Bears.
back. I think maybe in a little bit, but
We'll
as
see.
far as games go, we'll move along. The Packers and the Vikings, because I don't know how to feel about this. Vikings put on a show.
Yeah, that was a very tough game. I was able to watch most of that. Vikings overall looked pretty dominant up until the last bit of it, in the sense that like it dominated possession of time for the most part, if I recall. But even then, Packers were just shooting themselves in the foot, and Vikings just couldn't do stuff with certain things. I don't know. It should have been a bigger margin of a win, but it was 2 points.
Yeah, and I mean that's been a lot of the NFC North games have just been pretty close, except for a few with the Bears. But yeah, looking at the game, it was mostly a blowout. Like it was not very close most of the game. But the Packers tried crawling back. They did make it, like you mentioned, a 2-point game. But
This is a little too late for that.
I think something that was mentioned by Matt LaFleur that is actually a very key point and is a concern going forward is that the Packers have not been able to play a full 4 quarters of consistent football in every aspect of the game. Their run game works, their pass game works, their defense is good, but yet for some reason week to week they can't play 4 quarters of all around good football. They have all the pieces, but they just can't play that together.
Can't do it.
And I think that's
never been able to.
I think that's their biggest concern. Vikings again not winning like super flashily like some teams that we'll get to, but they're still winning. Like one team I know, they're just winning. But yeah, it brings up an interesting scenario for the Vikings. So that's come up as well. Soon talk about. We'll get to the scenarios coming up this next week and some other stuff, but move along to the also Bengals and Broncos on Saturday night game. This not only was a very interesting game, like a very fun game to watch, close game, but also had serious playoff implications as the Bengals need the Broncos to lose out, Bengals need to win out, and then this matchup really helps the Bengals. Bengals pull it out. There were 2 instances, one on each side, of poor time management, more so on the Broncos. I will say more so on the Broncos. I don't know. It seemed like a weird and bad week of time management.
There were several games this week that I was questioning head coach's ability to manage a clock.
The Broncos did not need to win that game to clinch the playoffs. They could have settled for a tie. And I know you hate ties, but
I really do hate ties.
Calling timeout does is put more time on the clock, and they burned timeouts, went 3 and out, and punted, or didn't burn 3 timeouts, burned 2 timeouts, but that saved a lot of clock that they could have ran and played for a tie. And I know again, a lot of people don't like that, but that just is the smart thing to do, and he did not do it.
He did not do it, yeah.
I was frustrating. But yeah, a game that was, I don't know, it was defensive but also not defensive in that there was
it was a very weird game.
Joe Burrow was sacked 7 times, but he did have a big game where he targeted the returning Denver Bronco corner, Riley Moss. He just came back from injury, and they targeted him all night.
Yes, he was getting torn up.
With some pretty good, effectiveness. And a large part of that was the person he largely was guarding was T. Higgins, who is my first set of flowers. He had 11 receptions, 131 yards, and 3 touchdowns, which was quite
crazy.
Kind of ridiculous.
If Cincinnati does not sign that man, I'm going to be disappointed. They're disappointed.
I wouldn't get your hopes up because
I know.
It's the way they are.
It's slim to none. It's slim to none right now, but like, come on. That's like the reason to keep him is that performance. So.
You're right. But we'll get a move on.
Chugging along. This was also not a very interesting game for the most part. Cardinals and Rams. This one did have playoff implications, obviously. Rams did win the NFC West. with the beating the Cardinals, and a couple other things happened, as you mentioned, with the Seahawks. Overall, pretty low-scoring, sloppy game for the most part. Trey McBride got his first touchdown of the season. Good for
Finally.
him. It just took until week 17. And then, yeah. And the Cardinals are now out of the playoffs as well.
Well, they were actually out of the playoffs last week.
They were, yeah.
Which we made sure to cover.
Yeah, we made sure to cover that, but I really wanted to axe them because they had the potential this year.
They did.
I don't know, and we talked about it several times, but they had the potential to actually win that division, if not do a little bit more. But they're just kind of in mediocrity right now, so
I mean, really,
it's just unfortunate.
But
yeah, anyone could have in that division.
Yeah.
But
looking, the one thing I will add to the Rams, you did win your division. The way they've played the last few weeks has concerned me because it kind of reminds me again, like the Packers, an inability to play both sides of the ball in one game. They've had a couple weeks of really low scoring defensive games, and then they've had shootouts. And it's like, okay, you can have an electric offense, you can have a stout defense. Can you play both sides of the ball in one game? And I think if you can't say yes to that question, I don't think you're going to do well in the playoffs. And I'm concerned because I don't know that they will actually be able to do that. And I'm concerned that they're going to go in and not look good, especially when you're looking at probably a 3 or a 4 seed. You're playing, what, a 5 or a 6 seed?
5 or 6 seed,
and
yeah.
Right now,
depends on what the record is.
We'll get to it in a minute, but the 5 seed is going to be a 14-3 team. So, not a good time.
Good luck.
Not a good
time for them.
But yeah, we'll move along just to get through these a little bit quicker so we can get to some talk of playoffs. So let's see. What were the interesting games here from Sunday? There were the Colts and the Giants game.
Yeah.
I won it. Colts, you had a chance to make the playoffs.
It was typical Colts. Typical Colts.
You had a chance, and you blew it to the worst team in the league.
How do you lose to the Giants with Drew Lock?
And it does come on a week where you didn't have Anthony Richardson. You had Joe Flacco in there. But the thing that is inexcusable is the fact that you're already anemic offense this year, which now was lacking your more electric quarterback, still put up 33 points, and you lost. I think the Colts defense the past 2 weeks has been the worst defense in the league. Really? They've allowed 45 this week, and I forget how much it was last. They allowed a 30-point comeback or 24-point comeback late in the game against the Titans.
Yeah, the Titans game. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that was not a great display.
Two of the worst teams in the league, your defense just...
Why?
And again, their defense hasn't been good this year, and we know that, but the way they played was horrid. But
it was awful.
On the flip side, to the Giants, we do have my second set of flowers. That's going to Malik Neighbors. 7 receptions, 171 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Is a crazy stat line. I think he averaged 24 yards per reception. Which is
he was balling. Drew Lock had a good day too.
Drew Lock did have a good day. It mostly went to Malik Neighbors, but
yeah, but
Malik Neighbors
right there.
I don't think he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he really should be up there because of the numbers he's put up with the quarterbacks he's played with. Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tim Boyle, and Tommy DeVito. And he's still putting up ridiculous. I feel so bad for that man.
I feel bad for him, but he did well.
He
There's not much we can do.
Continues to do well. I think he's going to get some help this next year. But
I'm I'm hoping he does, if the Giants don't screw this up again. But we'll see. We shall see.
And I mean, not a lot of ugly games. But also yes, the Colts again eliminated. Do your thing because I forgot they're the.
Yeah, Colts. You guys have been the middle of the road for like the past how many years now? 6, 7 years it feels like. I don't know. I always feel like you guys are trading out at quarterbacks every single year at this point, in which you are, but you're just not doing super hot. So, also, I remember talking about them having like one of the best O lines in the league at one point. They did at one point, and they kind of wasted on old quarterbacks. So, you deserve this. You didn't do anything with what you had, so, I mean, it was bound to happen. Also, stop wasting Jonathan Taylor's prime.
True, but I know I have one more game to talk about. I know there's, one more game and one more performance. And
Okay.
I'll keep it short because the performance in by one Baker Mayfield against the Carolina Panthers is my third set of flowers.
Yep.
27 for 32, 359 yards and 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Man had a perfect day.
Great day. He had a great day. Sure, it came against the Panthers, but it was a good day overall.
Panthers put up a fight in that first half.
Yeah, Evans only needs 85 yards to reach 1,000. What is it? Mayfield has had 4 games with 4 touchdowns this season alone. Prior to that, for the first 4 seasons, he's only had 4 games. So it's very impressive what he's done this year. Like we mentioned before, Buccaneers kind of control their own destiny right now, so they should be fine, right?
Should be.
Maybe we'll see.
And then one more game before we move along.
I was about to say, if you don't talk about this game, I'm going to be a little upset.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming this is the one you're talking about. It was actually the Monday night game, being the Lions and the 49ers. I don't know if that was the one you were thinking about, but
Nope.
I'll do mine quickly. Lions 49ers kind of battle it out. Lions kind of eke out a 6-point win, and
Yeah, kind of.
if it was played the way it was, the 49ers put up a good fight, but they're not a great team and they are still very injured. Lions, I feel like their defensive injuries are showing a lot more. And
yes, they are showing a lot more.
Kirby Joseph played very well. Offense did very well.
2 picks today?
2 interceptions, and he is now
Yep.
leading the NFL in interceptions. So he's having himself a good year, but the defense kind of showing that weakness, and it's kind of a weird thing that they went out and there was this whole talk about how they don't have to try because the game doesn't really mean anything. But they went out and still tried their hardest, and you still came out with only a 6-point win over an obviously underperforming 49ers team, a still very talented 49ers team, but who hasn't been very good. And with it, as
It
close
was
as they-
technically I don't know.
It was 6 points, but there was a touchdown that made it touchdown late in the game that made it close.
I was about to say, yeah.
But it was still a lot closer. Like if you go a little bit further back, there was a drive. Either way, not as convincing as I would have hoped for a team vying for the number 1 seed against a team that has been underperforming all year. So obviously there's reasoning behind it, but still just a little concerning. And I think that defense is going to have a lot more concerns going into the playoffs. So that was my thing.
Yeah, if they can get the 1 seed, go at least 1 game without Aiden Hutchinson, and if he comes back for that NFC Championship game, maybe they should be fine. Maybe we'll see.
You might be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm
But
curious what
the other-
game you were talking about because
Cowboys and Eagles. Didn't we not cover that already?
Oh no, I mean, and again, there's some games we didn't cover because they don't mean a lot and aren't super interesting. So we're trying to stick to the things that are. But yeah, there's some stuff to talk about in that one. If you
there's just a couple things that I want to mention.
go ahead.
Barkley only needs 101 rushing yards to beat Eric Dickerson's all-time rushing record. So there's that. Unfortunately, the Eagles are no longer able to get the 1 seed. They're kind of just stuck where they are.
At a 2 seed. Oh no.
At a 2 seed. Oh no. But I saw a whole video with AJ Brown throwing a ball into the stand for Tanner McKee's first NFL touchdown. But the fan came down, gave the ball back, and then AJ Brown gave a signed jersey to him. So I like seeing that. So
yeah,
that's all I
so
want to say.
But yeah, the dominant win of the Eagles over the Cowboys. Admittedly, I said that it wouldn't be a good look if the Cowboys kept this game close. It wouldn't be good because no CeeDee Lamb, no Cooper Rush, and I was like, if it's close at all, it's not going to look good. And then they pulled away, but there's still the fact that the Eagles did that not only with Kenny Pickett, but Kenny Pickett going out with injury and their third string quarterback.
Yeah, it wasn't looking too good for Kenny Pickett there on one of those plays where he tried throwing the ball forward but threw his body forward or was backwards. I don't know what he did. It was a weird play. It was a bang bang play, and I was like, what is going on here?
It was not pretty for him.
Kenny Pickett.
Luckily for Kenny Pickett, I think the Cowboys still looked worse and came out much bigger losers than Kenny Pickett there. So,
indeed,
that was an interesting game. But I think
there's always next year.
There's always next year for you guys. Does that mean anything? Who knows? But
we'll see.
I think. And just a tiny detail is also the Chargers clinched in a very dominant win over the Patriots. So, but that actually kind of does lead into something we're going to talk about before we get into power rankings, which is going to be, 2 topics. We'll start with playoff scenarios. Now we have 2 playoff clinch. Well, we have 2 seeds that are still open.
Mm-hmm.
One for the AFC, one for the NFC. And I know it's going to definitely get into it more next episode because we're going to talk about predictions and stuff. But you got the AFC 7 seed, who's going to come down to Broncos, who play the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got Bengals and Dolphins. Broncos get in with a win or a Dolphins and Bengals loss. Dolphins get in with a Broncos loss and a win. And Bengals get in with a Broncos loss, Dolphins loss, and a win.
Dolphins loss and a win.
Yeah. And then we look at the other side with the on the other side it's just Buccaneers win, they're in. Buccaneers lose. Falcons win, Falcons
win.
And Falcons lost, Buccaneers win. So I know we're going to get into predictions and we'll kind of give more official ones, but I want to know who you think is going to pull out the 7 seed and the NFC South with the 4 seed, or potentially 3 seed, depending.
Depends on what you really want, or unless you have something else you want to talk about.
One last thing. Just because they're not going to get a lot of attention, not much attention, following this one. This one is also kind of a prediction, but also just a conversation point. These bottom feeder teams, and specifically, who we think. I'm just curious who you think is going to end up with the number 1 overall pick. And also, can we talk about how bad some of these teams are at tanking? Like, obviously, again, they don't actually tank, but the Raiders are on a 2-game win streak. Giants just
Raiders
won.
Raiders are messing up big time.
Giants literally just gave away their like solo lead, so now they're tied with 3 wins. So now we have a bunch of 3-win teams. Well, I say a bunch. It's 4 3-win teams, a bunch of actually 4-win teams, and they're all vying potentially for that number 1 seed.
Let me see.
Or number 1 pick. And
I
think
I have an idea.
Curious who you think gets it and why teams are tanking so well or poorly. I don't know.
Depends on what your definition is.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this kind of bleeds into what the next episode is going to be about. But because of certain games, I do believe that the Browns or the Titans are going to end up with the number 1 pick. Only because of how usually Week 18 is with like resting starters, all that kind of stuff, and just kind of preparing for playoffs and draft, I guess. I don't know. It just depends on how you view it and which teams are actually going to lose and who's not going to win. But yeah, we shall see because I don't know. I do think it will be Cleveland or Tennessee because the Patriots, in my opinion, spoiler for next episode, I do think the Patriots will beat the backups for the Bills. So,
yeah, that's fair. I mean, the Giants are still there, but that'll be an interesting point.
That's true. It's one of those 3.
Do you think there's someone who's going to blow their draft position and get again, I guess it kind of bleeds into predictions, but do you think who's going to blow their tank the best or the worst? Who's going to blow it the worst?
Who is doing a terrible job of what they're supposed to be doing? The Raiders. 2-win streak. Like I don't know who else you want to pick. The Raiders are in kind of a limbo right now because they need a quarterback.
They do.
Quarterbacks usually in drafts either go immediately in the first round or you kind of pick them up in 3rd or 4th round. Usually. Depends on the draft class and everything. This year, there's only like maybe 2, 3 if you want to argue, and that's about it.
Well, definitely.
Everyone else is like backup material.
Definitely something to get into later. I'm so ready for draft season.
Oh my gosh. But we can geek out about a bunch of people that we'd never met before, but we think we can predict how they're going to do in the NFL. So that's usually how it goes. But
yeah, we're gonna have so much news to talk about next week because we're also gonna get to see who gets fired too. So fun times.
You're fired.
But we can.
You're fired.
Now we can get into these power rankings.
For number 10, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Drama.
Oh no, the tragedy.
You want a little spoiler here?
Yeah.
I don't have the Steelers in the top 10.
Okay, if you want to be mad at anybody, be mad at him. He's a Ravens fan, so I don't know.
I don't think I have very good reason. They just lost, what is it now, 3 straight games?
Yeah, that's true.
And not in good fashion.
I'm curious to see who your 10 is.
My 10
or 9,
actually,
depending on how you jumped.
My 10 is actually the same. And you stay here because you continue to win, but I mentioned before, it hasn't been pretty. You haven't really been able to play complete football, and that's the Los Angeles Rams. You're on a pretty strong win streak. Like, you're playing well.
Yeah, you're still winning games.
You're winning games. You're playing good on one side of the ball each game. Again, not playing complete football kind of concerns me. Mm-hmm. But a 5-game win streak still speaks enough for you to be in the top 10. But the top 10 is also kind of stacked, so...
Yeah, it's pretty hard to move people around. That's how I had
10.
to move. So.
But I'll let you go on to 9.
9. Green Bay Packers.
Ooh. Interesting.
They're the only team. They are the other team in the top 10 who lost. So if that tells you anything, then everything else should be similar.
At
So
number 9, I actually, and I'll preface this with the fact that the reason they're this low is also because I did not have them in my power rankings last week, and yeah, I'll get to it in a minute. But I do have the Chargers here.
Okay.
Originally, I had the Chargers kind of as a floater team just outside of the top 10 last week, and yes, they did come in and look really scary. Not just because they put up 40 points.
They looked pretty decent doing it.
Or because it's against the Patriots. But the reason why I give them this credit is because if they continue to play like they have on defense the rest of the year, if they continue that into the playoffs, they're a very scary team, because if they can score 40 points and still with the ability and the effectiveness to hold teams under 20, that is scary.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
7 points against the Patriots, whatever. But with how they've looked and pairing like an actually good offense against it, if their defense can hold strong on the lack of points they've allowed, they're gonna be terrifying. But I'm trying not to overreact because it was against the Patriots. I have you at number 9 though. They could be really scary though in the playoffs. But I'll let you go along to 8.
Number 8. Chargers. You basically explained everything that you need to explain for me, so thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. I guess I'll go along. This one won't be too long
8.
either, because I have the Packers here.
What?
Again, I think part of the reason why we have these flipped is literally the reason that I did not have the Chargers in before. I wasn't as high on them after the Broncos win, as I think maybe you were. But
they were not in my top 10 last week. They were close.
I think you did have them in your top 10 actually last week.
If I did, then they weren't very high. So
no, they weren't. I think they were actually at 9. But Packers, you dropped down a bit, and it's not. I'm back and forth because you still played well and you've played all of your division games close, but you're also
you didn't win anything.
You're 1-4 in division play. If you lose to the
Bears,
Bears,
they're also they don't have a good record against winning teams.
They really don't. And if you lose next week to the Bears, you're going to have the same division record as the Bears. And that's not a good look.
No.
But
the Bears.
Again, it's still a close. They're still a good team. They just they're not playing complete football. That's why you're down here at 8. And because you haven't beaten your division opponents, which, albeit really scary, but I have you at 8.
All right. Number 7, Commanders. Yeah, I mean, with that performance, I don't think there's really much to explain there. So it's very impressive what Daniels has been doing. So,
yeah, I also have the Commanders here. Daniels has put together several game-winning drives this year, and I'm just very impressed with them. That team they had their little slump, but they're kind of getting back to form right at the right time. They're going to be sloppy still, and you're going into the playoffs, which is a place where the veterans shine, and they do have some veterans, but Jayden Daniels at the helm, it's going to be a little concerning. But as far as the teams with a rookie quarterback, I think they have the most promise. We'll see.
They definitely do, yes.
See the Broncos, but I think they have a lot of promise there. So, you get 7.
Okay. Number 6, Vikings. I wanted to move them higher, but like the teams who are higher are also winning games as well.
Oh, so no. Oh, no.
Gee, I wonder what's happening now.
I don't think you know what's happening. The top 6 was very difficult for me because the top 6 played very well and have been playing very well the past few weeks.
That's what I mean. Like, there's no reason to move them around, but also I kind of want to, but I didn't.
I moved things around quite a bit. I kind of like clean slate from what I had last week, especially from 6 on up, and I reevaluated, and then I repositioned everyone. So it's going to be jumbled.
Right.
I do have the Ravens at 6. because
Oh.
I wanted to put them higher, but the teams above them, except for maybe one, the teams above them, while not being as flashy and as electric and just like sometimes dominant, the teams above them, even when they don't play as dominant football, still manage to win games, while the Ravens can play really good football and still lose games. And
This is true.
I think that's the thing that keeps them out of the top five, is the fact that they still are losing games, even though they're playing like one of the best teams in the league, is their inability to actually just win games. So
Yeah.
that's why I have them there. I really wanted them higher, but that is the one thing that they don't have that the rest of the teams do have. And it pains me because I really wanted them top five. I wanted to put them like as far as like 3 or 4, but just couldn't do it. So I have them at 6.
That's not how it works. All right. Number 5, Ravens.
There you go.
But there's no reason to move them.
Fair enough. Again, I mean,
Clean slate. Come on. What's number 5? Come on, give it to me.
all right, number 5. You're really gonna be boggled by this. I have the Lions.
I'm not that upset.
I mentioned
I'm not.
before, they're still a really good team. They still find a way to win, but your defensive injuries are showing more and more each week. And a 49ers offense that has been struggling this year looked pretty
Yeah.
good. They didn't punt. They had 2 turnovers, or 3 turnovers, 2 or 3 turnovers.
3 turnovers. Yeah.
But they still looked pretty good. Ricky Pearsall had a very good game. And it's
Yeah.
just, again, if you're going against like the Eagles or the Vikings or whoever in the playoffs, like compared to those teams, that defense, it's going to make it a lot harder to win games. Again, they're all these top 5 teams, they manage to find a way to win. But when you have the defensive concerns, it's a little bit harder to put you up there. And those defensive concerns is what drops you, even though your offense is, again, one of, if not the best in the league. So
That's true. That's true. Number 4, KC. Chiefs. I mean, they did beat a really good defense. That's all I'm going to say. That's how the Steelers have been winning games. It's just that defense. I still do not trust the Steelers' offense. I've been saying that all season.
this is true. And I also have the Chiefs at 4. And it's not so much that I didn't feel a need to move them or reason to move them. I wanted to move them up because, well, I didn't really want to move them up, but I was tempted to move them up because they're actually starting to play well. You know, they're
playing better.
They're playing good football now, rather than
They're playing
what
good.
was. I mean, again, people are going to get mad because I'm saying it's not good football, but they're cleaning it up and actually kind of dominating. I wouldn't say like dominating, but instead of just
But they're doing- yeah.
finding ways to win, now they're actually just outright winning their games.
Winning.
And they're doing it at the
Yeah.
right time, which is what they manage to do every year. But I still think the
Exactly.
teams above them are a little bit more dominant and also, again, still finding ways to win games. So I think they're still down at 4
More
because they're
efficient.
just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Number 3, Eagles. Top 3 teams. One of the top 3 teams. Barkley, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, everybody else over there. Sure, Jalen Hurts wasn't playing, but even then, that team is still very dominant.
Very true. My number 3 is actually the Buffalo Bills, because the
That's fair.
Bills, I don't know. They're weird because last 2 weeks you haven't had that Josh Allen dominance as much, and that's kind of what had you up at 1 2 weeks ago, was just how dominant he was playing. And I don't know if it's just literally he doesn't need to, because the rest of the team is stepping up, and that's good. That's why you're still top 5. And again, you got a dominant win against the Jets. But I don't know. It was a weird game where the Jets just were not any good, and so the Bills kind of just cruised. But
Yeah.
they're
They
still
didn't really have to do much.
they're still a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen, again, if he's cooling off at all, it's going to be a little bit concerning because he's been kind of the thing that's carrying them. But again, if the rest of the team is coming together, it's kind of what you need to be really scary. So probably have to wait until playoffs to see if Josh Allen really has cooled off or if he's just, taking the back seat for a little bit. But I have the Bills at 3.
Okay. Number 2, Lions. They're doing a lot with little what they have. That's probably the only reason why they are there right now. And they also won. It's just they lose against Minnesota next week. Then they are dropping heavy. Like they're dropping. It's just the fact that they're able to keep this up for this long with how bad that defense is quite impressive. I don't know. There's just something about that Detroit defense or that Detroit offense that somehow still kicks. They're very special. It's unfortunate that Montgomery isn't in, but yeah.
Yeah, but I get it. My number 2 is the Philadelphia Eagles. Dominant win over the Cowboys.
Oh, okay.
With Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee in there.
Mm-hmm.
The defense is scary. The offensive or the passing game is getting very scary. They're actually coming together. Run game, obviously Saquon has been dominant. It's just a very dominant team all the way around. There's slight concerns with Jalen and his injury, and you probably, again, won't see him next. I doubt you see him next week with the playoffs. Like, they're pretty much set. I believe they're actually set in the number 2 spot.
I believe it's number 2.
And so you probably won't see him. They'll probably rest him another week. And again, being able to win the way they did without even having Jalen in that game against a division rival who usually is really competitive, it's a really good sign. But also, again, a little bit of concern there and concern from the way they played earlier in the year. But they do look a lot better, and that's why I have them at 2. Also, there's another reason why I have who I have at 1, but I'll let you go to number 1.
Okay. All right. Number 1, the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen is a one-man wrecking crew. Sure, he didn't do much this week, especially against the Jets, but he's getting ready for the playoffs, just like a lot of other teams are. So I imagine this next week he's probably going to be resting along with a bunch of other players. So I am not that concerned for him. So, but otherwise, the Bills' offense and defense have been stepping up. They've been doing their parts, and it doesn't seem like Allen is doing quite everything, which is good. So I'm curious to see how they do. And then you're number 1.
Yeah, I think you've been able to do the math, and I think you can realize why I said, oh, no. I have the Minnesota Vikings at number 1.
That's a very bold.
It's very bold, but also at the same time, they're vying for the number 1 seed in the NFC. They're not flashy like the Lions are.
No.
They've been kind of quiet. They have the longest win streak in the NFL right now. They've managed their games well. They have so much talent. They have Sam Darnold, who has to be comeback player of the year. They're well coached. They're playing well. Their defense is good. You've played a very tough division very well. They've played everyone very well. You're 14-2, and you deserve. I mean, again, the top 5 is no one has less than 13 wins, which is just ridiculous that there's 5 teams that are that good.
Yeah,
but
it's not every year you see that.
No, the skill gap is crazy. But again, I have the Vikings here just because they're healthier. Their O-line is playing well, which obviously we saw Darisaw go out early in the year, and for them to bounce back and play the way they are, they're just a very good and solid unit. And I went back and forth. I went back and forth with anyone. I could have put anyone really at number 1, but I put the Vikings there because of the way they've played and the way they've been winning, and it's just been consistent, good, and I'm probably gonna bite the bullet on putting them there. I don't know if I got some sort of curse on them. I believe that is everything we have here for this week's recap.
Episode.
So, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. So glad to have you, Josiah, back, because
I'm alive. Sort of.
I think I was losing my mind.
It's super late here.
It do be super late, but
it's super late here.
Yeah, I think people thought I was losing my mind, probably because I was.
Oh, because that you were just doing it all alone.
Well, Josiah was there, but you know.
Oh. Apparently, I'm a little bit out of the loop right now, so.
It's
all right.
But
I'll see.
Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.
See ya.
Bye.